Welcome to Breaking Barriers, Women Building Business in York and North Yorkshire, produced by Enterprise Works and hosted by me, Andrea Morrison. Together we're exploring the stories, challenges and successes of women entrepreneurs across our region. This series is grounded in the new era for female entrepreneurship research, a collaboration between the University of York and the Federation of Small Businesses. The research uncovered critical insights about the everyday realities, hidden obstacles and untapped potential of women building businesses in York and North Yorkshire. From city centres to countryside villages to our coastal towns, women are reshaping industries, challenging expectations and building businesses that create economic value and jobs. But it could be better, with the research suggesting that if women in enterprise were supported, they could add 165,000 jobs and add 2 billion of new value to our region. Each episode will dive into a new theme. You can expect honest conversations with female founders, change makers and also allies, alongside practical tools and insights to help you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. So whether you're just starting out, scaling up or simply searching for some solidarity, we hope you enjoy the podcast and hear something new. In our first episode, we explored confidence and how that shaped the experience of female founders. And today, we're turning to challenges that often shape women's entrepreneurial journeys: inequality and caregiving expectations. Too often, women do not choose to become self-employed, but we do so out of necessity. We'll explore how, while systematic barriers and flexible workplaces and gendered caregiving roles push women back to building businesses on their terms, there is often hidden challenges that hold them back too. So I have two incredible guests with me today and I'm very excited to be talking to them. I have Valentina Hines, who is the CEO of SVH Inc., a community interest company who work to boost well-being and mental health through training and away day experiences. She's faced profound personal and professional challenges, from her husband's stress-related heart attack and an immigration battle to launching her first social enterprise in the UK, YOLO Dance, while caring for a newborn. Through that venture, she learned crucial lessons in strategy, resilience and community building, which paved the way for establishing SVH Inc. CIC. And we also have with us Emily Pickard. York Mumbler began in 2012 as a small Facebook community created by Emily, who wanted to connect parents and share advice. What started as a simple chat group soon grew into a trusted source of local family knowledge, with Emily compiling tips and recommendations after her corporate workdays. Today, York Mumbler has evolved into a website with over 40,000 people visiting it and 3,000 pages of listings and blogs, regularly updated with community business insights to remain a vital source for families in York. So welcome, ladies. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start right at the beginning. What pushed you both towards self-employment? Was there a particular moment or influence that sparked it?
For me, honestly, nothing pushed me into it. I can't answer this question without first acknowledging my upbringing. So my parents were self-employed. So self-employment was always on the table. In fact, it was, the norm in my family growing up. So there was never a barrier to, can I do this? Because it was just felt like it's what you can do. Having said that, I would have always classed myself as quite a kind of by the book conventional kind of child. I went through school, did well enough, went to university, got a graduate job, and I sort of stuck within the kind of boundaries of society, if you like. I didn't do anything that wacky or crazy as going and self-employed, if you like. And I had a number of corporate jobs before becoming self-employed. So there was a moment though. It wasn't a decision to become self-employed for me. It was a decision that I can no longer carry on in this sort of corporate world. And I must caveat that with saying the companies I worked for actually I thought were fantastic. There was not a moment of, any sort of discrimination that I felt, but there was a moment where I was sat around a boardroom table with wonderful employees who I got on with really well, colleagues of mine, and I was heavily pregnant with my second daughter. And I was in this meeting, as I'm sure anyone who's in corporate life has been, where we were going around a lot of very similar topics to things that we've talked about before. And I was just thinking, we've been here, we've done this, and why isn't anyone voicing this anymore? Because I was often the person that would voice the sort of awkward conversations and going, we've already said this, can we move it along? And I kind of didn't have the energy to do that again. And I felt my baby kick inside me. And I thought, I'm wasting my life. What am I doing? And as you'd mentioned, at the same time, I had been building up York Mumbler as a hobby. That's all it was ever going to be. It was going to be a hobby. Thankfully for me, my sister had paved the way in Harrogate and already turned Mumbler, she runs Harrogate Mumbler, turned that into a business. So she'd sort of started, so it didn't feel like too big a risk, like she'd started to create a business from it. And it was at that moment that I just thought, I'm handing in my notice. I'm leaving. At the time, the numbers didn't add up. We couldn't afford it. My husband was actually changing his career at the same time. He was taking a risk. But I could just no longer, as I saw it, waste my life. That's how it felt.
Yeah. Wow. And how about you, Valentina? What was your story?
My story is quite nuanced and layered. I first ventured into self-employment when I left university and couldn't find a job. Now, not because I didn't have a good degree, but I couldn't find a job due to nepotism. And the nepotism was just, I had everything against me. A beautiful young lady. So it was, would you date me? If you date me, I'll give this job to you, and not wanting to let go of my values. And I had older friends who said to me throughout university, you were enterprising, you've always been entrepreneurial. Why do you think you need to box yourself into this pigeonhole? Because that's what you've been told to do. You went to university, you're out, you now get a job, and that's it. Why don't you set up a business? So they registered a business for me and gave me the push. And so it came to that point where it's either I start doing something to pay the bills or I do not. And I just, languish away. So that's how I first ventured into self-employment. And when I came to the UK, my husband had had all of this. He had had a heart attack, and I came because of that. And there was caregiving challenges there. I had a 1-year-old son who I couldn't leave. And I had immigration challenges with Home Office. So for a long time, it was, this is someone who's quite enterprising, who always has to do something. But I found myself pigeonholed in a way that I couldn't even volunteer, because they just didn't, they're like, oh no, your status doesn't let you do anything. I'm like, but you're not paying me. I just need to do something. But even for those who wanted me to support them voluntarily, I had the challenge of a 1-year-old. And so all of these things came together at the end of the day to define me setting up Yolo Dance. Because I started to write to people, to organizations, to say, let me plan this for you. You do this. And they just wouldn't take it up. And it just really brought to life all those things about my frustrations with being an employee and having all these great ideas, and you have all this bureaucracy that stops you from being able to achieve them or action them. So that's how I ventured into self-employment here in the UK again.
Yeah, so two very different experiences there. Do you think that caregiving responsibilities have played a part in your decision to become self-employed and continue to do so?
Oh yes, definitely. I remember when I first set up, now Yellow Dance was different because that was my first social enterprise in the UK, and it was a mommy and baby dance class for mums. It was just to remind you what you used to be like before you became a mum, because very often we forget about that and we just become mum, and at one point we wake up in the middle of the night, or we look at a child or look at our husband and go, hey, wait a minute, I used to be this girl. This used to be me. So that was why I set up Yellow Dance, because I was going through that phase and I wanted us to be able to bond with our babies, because the babies should fit into our lives, not us fitting into the baby's life that's just being defined. But when I set up SVH Inc., which is a very different thing, and that was for the working population, that was for corporates. I had a newborn baby because I set up Yellow Dance on SVH Inc. at the same time. So I had a newborn baby who I couldn't leave at home. And I would wear him in a sling and go for meetings in really high skill places. And my husband, I remember, because he's quite conservative and traditional, he would say, well, you can't go with the baby. My question would be, so what happens to the baby? There's no babysitter. We're not putting the baby in a nursery. Who's going to look after a newborn baby while I go for these meetings? And we had this partnership. He was meant to open the doors, being the white, middle-aged white man, and I am the black woman who you shut the door at my face before you open it. So my husband opens the door and I walk in, and my passion basically keeps the door open. So there's no other way to get it done except for go with the baby. So yes, caregiving roles do have a lot to play in self-employment, because you can actually shape how you want your self-employment to be. But also as a mentor, I know a lot of women, a lot of the women I mentor give this same excuse and say, well, I can't go for this and I can't go for that networking meeting, or I can't set this up because I've got the baby. And I just say, look, go with the baby. I always went for stuff with the baby, and if I had to breastfeed, I say, I'm really sorry, life calls. Because you could take a moment to go get yourself coffee or take a smoke break. I can do that and go breastfeed a baby. I think it's just that do you and the world will adjust. That's one of the things. But you can't do that if you work for a corporate.
You've taken me straight back to my first days of Mumbler when I did leave the corporate, and I took my baby to all my meetings with me. And that's the freedom that self-employment has that didn't exist. And I've been self-employed for 12 years now, but from my understanding doesn't exist still in most corporates. You can't take your children along with you. And yes, sometimes there's a reason for that. And there's some meetings I go to now that, to be honest, I wouldn't want my children to be there with me. But when you don't have a choice, and when they're little babies that frankly are, just an extension of you almost, why not? And do you know the great thing that came out of it? And I hope this was your experience. I don't know if it was. No one minds. Yeah. No one had a problem with it. Because babies are humans like the rest of us, and they kind of bring a connection together. And
they do.
Often the people that you're in the meeting with often has children, or if they don't, they've have maybe children in their lives. They've got nieces, they've got nephews. We've all been children. It's a connector rather than a barrier, I would say. Just being real and honest and human, and bringing that to whoever it is that you're speaking to.
That's a really interesting perspective, isn't it? Because I think for a lot of women, they would be fearful of taking, especially small babies, if they were building their business.
Yes.
I know I run many courses, and if I have somebody with a small child, I'm like, no, bring them. Don't let that be a barrier to come.
Exactly.
It's okay. We all understand. We've all been there. And I think maybe raising that as a narrative and making that the new narrative could be really opening for a lot of women, couldn't it? Very supportive. Do you think, though, obviously juggling childcare and building a business, do you think life balance is something that women in business can really achieve? Is it something that is achievable with self-employment? Does it give you life balance? What's your experience been with that?
It depends on your perception of life balance. I honestly don't like the phrase, because it makes you feel like you can have it all, which I also hate, that phrase. It feels to me like pressure. I'm a Libra, so I love true balance. I think when we as people and societies and humans and women are balanced, that's when flow happens, and that's great. But in terms of this sort of work-life balance thing, it just, to me, I don't know, you can't do, we're just talking hours here, you can't do a full-time job and be a kind of full-time parent, which also I hate that phrase, because you're a parent no matter what your working schedule. I think a lot of these phrases have got a lot of, meaning to them that maybe aren't helpful in a lot of cases. Can you achieve a life that feels, that flows, that, that you can work as a parent, as a mother? Absolutely you can. Some days that's going to be easier than others, to have this false idea that you're going to have a whole month. We as women are cyclical creatures, and, to have a whole month where you feel great every day, unlikely, I think. But also I think we need to acknowledge that and go, that's okay though, you know, and ideally if you can get to know your cycle and that kind of thing, plan things within that cycle, your power days, your days where you know you're going to be struggling more. If you can't plan it, at least just try and go with it. And I think it is a lot easier to go with it when you are self-employed and you can kind of ultimately make your own decisions. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I like that as an answer. I mean, I know I asked the question, but I agree with you wholeheartedly that sometimes these phrases that we band around actually aren't really helpful to us at all, because it's setting an expectation that is humanly impossible. And actually, I love the fact of going with the flow is a much more natural and easy way on us without increasing that stress that perhaps we put on ourselves. What do you think, Valentina?
I agree with that. I think it adds a lot of stress to us, and the most important is we hear about burnout. I was speaking with my mentee yesterday, and she was talking about not wanting to burn out because she's working part-time in a job, but she's also set up a charity, and she's looking for how to make the charity start to pay her. So it's a whole lot of stuff, but she also has a 1-year-old, and that just reminds me of my journey. And so I said to her, first thing I need to tell you is you will burn out. And she thought I was like, oh, you're taking on too much, you'll burn out. I said, no, I'm not saying that. I'm telling you, it's a fact. You will burn out. And it's not because you're doing too much. It's just because there is so much going on in your life as a woman, as a caregiver. You will burn out. And the sooner we accept that, the easier it is for us to manage it. Because if we know we will burn out, what we can do is start to prepare that emergency preparation. When I start to feel disconnected from things, do I need to take a step back? What do I need to do? And it's building all those little blocks in that would help us. And also, if you have a supportive partner or you have with the caregiving thing, you can go, okay, look, for example, I've just come back from a solo trip. And I said to my husband, I haven't had a solo trip in 12 years. I need to go away and not be mummy or darling or friend. I just want to go away somewhere and not know anyone. And he was like, okay. So because I'm struggling. And the struggle with burnout is you know your mission, you know your vision, but you just don't have the energy to do it. And that is where that work-life balance, what is it? Because as a caregiver, you don't have it. I was saying to someone, I said, you don't sleep when you're a mom. You don't know what the word is to sleep, to have a deep sleep. I used to think that was me until I saw some Facebook posts about that, and there was this poem, and I thought, you've just articulated my life, because I don't have a deep sleep when the boys are home. I go to bed, the littlest sound, I'm up to find out what's going on with you. Are you coughing? Should I get you water? You know, are they breathing okay? Are they sweating? All these little things that we do not realize. I mean, I went away, my husband went away with the boys. They came back, they were covered in heat rashes. And I'm thinking, that's because you just slept through the night.
It's that mother's intuition, right?
You know?
And yeah, so I would consider myself a really good sleeper, but the way you've been describing that is absolutely right. So I do sleep well unless one of the kids needs me, and you've just got this thing that wakes you up and look over at your partner and go, how are you not hearing this? And yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's true. And after some time that catches up with you, because as a mental health first aid trainer, we always say the first thing that you start to notice when you are struggling is your diet changes, your sleep changes. And if you are not sleeping properly, no matter how well you think you sleep, but you're not having that deep sleep for a long enough time, it's going to catch up with you. And within that, as a self-employed person, you're everything to your business. You're thinking constantly, how do I generate funds? And in the current economic climate, oh, come on, that is 100 times harder than it used to be. A lot of people are letting go and just going to get jobs, and that's causing more anxiety and stress because you're now trying to balance all these things. So yes, you will burn out, but the thing is, how do you recognize that you're burning out and not actually hate yourself for suddenly being disconnected from your family and your friends and not wanting to have a conversation with anyone anymore, and suddenly going, I don't recognize who I am.
And it's not failure.
It's not failure.
Burnout's not failure. Because this whole, you can do it all and work-life balance makes you think that other people are living this life.
Yeah.
And there's not a single person I've spoken to that lives that life, as probably as an employed or a self-employed person, to be honest.
No.
Parent or not, so that's a fallacy. So to think that you can have it all and not get burnt out, and that burnout is a failure and it's a collapse, an emergency point is, it's interesting just to accept you're going to burn out. That's really useful.
Just accept. It's a bit like this whole fad now, and don't get old. Use this and use that you can get old. We have to recognize we will get old. How fast we get old or how fast we age, that is up to a lot of things. But once we accept that we will age, then we can start to slow down and appreciate and enjoy the process. It's the same thing with being self-employed and being a caregiver. You will burn out. There's no such thing as work-life balance.
No. I find that so powerful. And what came to my mind when you were talking, it's like having a car, isn't it? And filling it up with petrol and just going, it's never going to run out. Like, I'm never going to run out of petrol. Well, of course you're going to run out of petrol if you don't put petrol back in it. And
Absolutely.
Human beings are exactly the same. At some point, you're going to hit the empty tank mark. And your body's going to tell you, your sleep is going to get disrupted, you're not going to eat properly, all of that. And all of this is signals that, okay, your tank is empty.
Yeah.
And when you're juggling, your own business and you have caring responsibilities, that's going to happen.
It will happen.
And again, you don't say to your car, oh, you stupid car, you've run out of petrol again. You just accept that, don't you, as something that is a natural thing to happen.
So following from that analogy, actually, because when you were talking about having your emergency sort of tips in place when when you do reach burnout, with the analogy of the car, knowing how topping up regularly with fuel, topping yourself up regularly is a way that I've found to help with that. Because when I first started my business, you're absolutely right, I burnt out a number of times. I still do it, to be honest, and I'm 12 years in. And I used to book, a day retreat or, a yoga retreat or something quite dramatic and expensive and going, I'm going to fix myself with this. And I'm all for that, by the way, like, do it. If you can do it, then do it. However, the thing that's made the biggest difference for me these days, and I've just been there today, is a weekly yoga class. A weekly yoga class, a monthly sister circle that I go to, and then occasionally, if and when I can and if we can afford it, then do something bigger. But those sort of little keep it fueled up regularly, as well as the annual service or whatever you might want to call it.
Go for the MOT, and you can't not take the car for its MOT, even if it's a brand new car, and to say you're still going to need to go service it. And it's just that constant servicing in addition to topping up the fuel or diesel or charging it if it's EV, like we all have now. But it definitely has to go for servicing. And it's just once we recognize that, I think as humans, we kind of personalize it, thinking we can just keep going and not ever break down. But we will break down, and we want to also remember that there is no time scale for when we will break down or when we will get back to who we were before, because there's no such thing as going back to who you were before. You go back to feeling some of what you felt like before, but it will change because you've expanded, you've grown, and you've got new knowledge. And it's just understanding and recognizing that. That's what helps.
So looking back on your journey, what kind of support do you feel would have been helpful, or was there something you'd wish you'd known? If you could go back and speak to that early founder, what advice do you think would have been helpful to you then?
I think the advice I would give is probably that I did get this advice, but it's nuanced. I think something you said earlier about everything in its time. So it's okay. You do have to go 100 miles an hour. I could go back to myself and say, do yoga once a week or take breaks once a week. But actually that wasn't right for me at that time in my career or my self-employment journey. And I also had a 1-year-old and a newborn and a 2-year-old when I first started. So actually I suppose what we've been talking about here is a lot of that, what you would term as self-care or, looking after yourself in whatever format that comes, honestly, in my first 5 years of having babies, that felt like another pressure. Like, and I could argue for, yes, you needed it more then, and I possibly did, but I didn't have the head space for a yoga session every week at that time, and I didn't actually want it. What I wanted was quiet time with my newborn, and that was for me at that time, and everyone's different. Some people want time without their babies, and absolutely, if that's what you need and you need some time away, then do it. And of course I had time without my babies too, but don't let self-care become another pressure that you have to add into the balance.
Absolutely.
Self-care can be going to the loo by yourself. It can be whatever you can do, whatever you want to do, and don't let anyone else tell you what you need. That's probably the advice I would give. Try and lean into your own intuition. I didn't used to know what that was. I didn't think I had intuition. It just didn't make sense to me. But it's just that inner knowing of what you need right now. And lots of people will tell you what you need, and with the nicest intentions. They're not necessarily right, for you. So I would say, try and tune into that intuition and take the self-care that you need, which might be working, might be time with your baby. It might, it depends who you are.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's really powerful, isn't it? I think there's so much, isn't there, whether you're looking on LinkedIn or other social media about what self-care you should have and what that should look like and what you should do. And you're absolutely right. It just becomes another thing on the to-do list that is already a mile long.
Yes.
And then, of course, you get to it and you think, oh, no, I never went to yoga, or I've got that gym membership I never use. And it just becomes another thing that becomes a pressure rather than something that's supposed to be a positive. How about you, Valentina? What would you add to that?
If I could go back 5 years, I'll be teaching myself knowledge. And that knowledge would be things like understand what an exit strategy is when you have a business. If you have a business and it no longer serves its purpose, what can you do with it? Because in the past, I just shut the business down and moved on. And now I know that there's so much I could have done with that. I could have sold it. The things like evaluating a business, I could have sold it. I could have franchised it. I could have done so much with it. And I just feel like I walked away with money on the table. And so many women do that. So I would actually say to my younger self, go learn these things, because it's not common knowledge, but you need to know it. And another thing I know that a lot of women founders and women in business do is that they personalize business. So if I came to you for a collaboration and you turned me down, I need to recognize that in business, there is no such thing as a permanent enemy or a permanent friend. Just because we've worked together today, if we have a friendship out of business, we should keep that friendship as friendship, and business understand that friendship doesn't influence this collaboration or association. So it is understanding that, but the most important thing is always working with someone whose ethics align with yours. But really, it is just a personalized business, and that's something a lot of us do not learn. We kind of take personal things into the business, and it causes all of this chaos. How could they turn me down? You work at that big company. Why couldn't you go and get me the contracts? Why couldn't you do this? But once we start to recognize that maybe it just didn't work at this point in time, maybe you do not actually have the leverage to give me that contract. If you understand that, then the friendship remains as a friendship. And business, if it doesn't work today, it will work tomorrow. It's just, that's what I'll go back to myself 5 years ago and say, stop stressing, Valentina. Go and learn more. Go and do this. That's what I would do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So are there any particular kind of regional resources or help that you've tapped into that have helped your business that you could maybe give a shout out, or just to share that knowledge with anybody who's listening today?
I've been to numerous business networking sessions here in York. We're in York right now, and there's there's a lady at City of York Council who has a whole list of all of these, and so go to I forget the name, I can't remember not the lady's name, but the department's name. But anyway, they help local businesses. In York, and they're good connectors between different businesses and small businesses, and going to networking meetings. Some you'll go to and you'll go, I don't know what I got out of that one wasn't for me, but you might have got something you didn't realise, and then some you'll go to and just enjoy as well, 'cause being self-employed can be quite lonely. So I, to be honest, went to the business networking, not just about getting business, but also talking to people who are maybe in the same boat or similar boats, and it helps you realise this issue you're having. Someone might go, oh yeah, me too, and you might come to a solution together, even if it's not a direct, there's no cash exchange business there. There's other things. So, and again, I ebb and flow with that. So I haven't actually done any networking last year, but certainly in the early days, I did a lot of business networking, talking to people and sort of putting myself out there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So for me, networking and using my own view, being an immigrant, and having a baby, and that meant I wasn't part of the culture, especially in Harrogate, which is very predominantly white and very predominantly middle class, and while very supportive of an outsider in need, not very welcoming of an outsider so that you can grow and flourish. So it's quite nuanced, but I will still live in Harrogate, give it a choice. But things that have supported me in my business, I think the very first one was being on the NatWest Entrepreneur Accelerator program. That gave me this, not just a confidence to keep going, but I could use them to learn, because it was during COVID and they were also pivoting and learning in this whole new landscape. And that made me feel that's this huge conglomerate and they're struggling and messing up with stuff. And there's little me, one-man band. Of course, it's okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes. So that was good. But one of the best things there was meeting other entrepreneurs, different sizes of business, different stages of their business, and actually starting that started to give me that extra insight into LinkedIn. Because you look at LinkedIn, you look at Facebook, you look at Instagram, and everyone has this polished life. You've got it all together. Life is great. And you'll see some people who just will post and go, oh, I'm just stopping to give you this little message. I'm on my way to see this client, bringing in 7 figures. And then I'm like, hey, hold up, we're just in a group meeting. Hey, you said you haven't brought income in the past 3 months.
Yeah.
That was a bit... For me, that was helpful because it's a new business and didn't know all of that. That was good. Now, Enterprise Works is another one. Great value for York and Yorkshire region. I just really have found it very useful being affiliated with them. And then there's the NPH, which is a Northern Powerhouse minority business group. That's really good because you get to actually learn a lot, like you said. It's not just networking with individuals who you probably not usually meet in reality, but you actually are learning from just having these really fine-tuned conversations, which is really good. And then there's Lift Adventures, which is in West Yorkshire, but you also learn. I think at the end of the day, what we're saying is still the networking, but with my kind of person, I like networking with a purpose. I don't want to go into a room where we all have to pitch 1 minute. I'm like, everyone is just interested in what they're going to say and what you're going to get. No, that's not what I want. I want to work in and meet you, Andrea, and go, oh, Andrea, hi, lovely to meet you. And if I see you tomorrow somewhere, I'm like, yeah, she does this, and you get a feel for me. And I haven't met you with the lines of what can I get from you, but more with that genuine connection and thus occupying the same space, the places where decision making matter. Those are the kind of things that I like, which are the people I have mentioned to you and the organizations I listed.
Yeah. And also, like I said, my parents were self-employed. So I'll be honest, when I first started in self-employment, my sister was the same, who started Mumbler overall. I didn't realise there was any help. I thought if you are self-employed, that's you. And, you know, I wasn't aware of any support. We just started, but we started with the support of family, friends, because, you know, we, like I say, we grew up in an environment of self-employment, and also being very much encouraged to be curious, go speak to people, ask, you know, who knows who. I've got this issue, I've got no idea what to do with it. And maybe you don't know anyone that would help with that, but they might know someone, you know. So just have some open conversations with people, share your problems, you know, don't think that you're the only one that's got problems, you're not. So yeah, that can be really helpful as well. And the amount of things that have just come up that I just could not have guessed who that would have come from, or that solution would have come from, or that answer, you know, that's happened so many times through just, you know, by accident type conversations. So yeah, being open about your issues or what you're trying to do, I think can be really helpful.
Yeah. And can I just add something there? And that is, if you're a woman listening to this and you're like me, who is not indigenously British, who's come from a culture like mine, I'm Nigerian, and we have a very different culture to the UK British culture. It could feel like a huge thing, like trying to understand. If you said, "How are you?" and I started to answer, I still do that. I'm walking past and someone says, "How are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh," when I start to respond, I'm like, "Oh, they weren't really interested." I still do that, and it's been years, but it still trips me up. But what I'm trying to say is, we don't always get that, have a conversation and share your problems, or because we are, especially if you're in Yorkshire, you have little groups, and not everyone is going to share. There's this sense of sometimes competition, but the isolation is the biggest part. And just not having that awareness about who to go to, where to go to. If I wasn't fortunate to get in with Enterprise Works, and that's because they reached out to me about some pitch for funding, and this was years ago or so, and I'm like, what is this? Is this scam? What on earth is this? And started to Google and had a call with them, and they were like, oh, okay, so that actually works. And I attended it, and that's how I got into their ecosystem. But if that didn't happen, I would have had no idea. So there are women like me who just have no idea, and I have some of them who eventually call me up and go, can you tell me how to get into this, or how to do this, or how? And I'm like, okay, these are the tips I can give. So yes, it's fine to go up to networking groups, but it's also recognizing that there are cultural and structural gatekeepers that would actually let you get the best of that. For example, funding and business support. Who do you go to in York? You don't know who to go to. Everyone kind of assumes you know who to go to, you know where to go, but that's not something you know. It's not common knowledge. And so that's what I'll say. Definitely find all these, whether it's a university or something, get into the business ecosystem, and you'll find more of that information if you're from somewhere.
It's a snowball effect, isn't it, in a way that I was the same. I didn't know that anything had existed, and you think, oh gosh, everyone knows all of these networks and these secrets and these people and this funding, and I didn't know any of it. But I don't know if there are gatekeepers, or it's just you've just got to start following the threads, you know, and I still don't know that. Maybe there is someone who sort of knows all of this stuff, but for me, I've just, you know, follow threads, and some lead to another, lead to another, lead to another, that ends up helping.
I think when we say gatekeeper, when I say gatekeeper, I don't mean literally a single person. It's just that sometimes when you have like there's this perception that an American is loud. Oh, they're just loud and quite aggressive. But maybe they really aren't, but that's just that perception, and that already creates a gate, because they need to now be aware of that cultural difference and deliberately try to tone it down. And the Nigerian is a lot like that. So a Nigerian could come in and seem really aggressive and quite too effusive, and for the British, they're like, not genuine. No. Don't want that, and that becomes that cultural gatekeeping, because your intuition has just gone, no, you're not now going to be 100% authentic with me. You're not going to be 100% welcoming to me. You're going to go on your girls' trip with the girls you grew up with. You're not going to say to me, Valentina, I'm going on a girls' trip. Do you want to come? And because of that girls' trip, I'd learn a lot. But I'm not now being included to that. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? Or you're going for tea with some mums or some other business women you've met. Valentina doesn't automatically get an invite.
Okay.
I might be part of the WhatsApp group, but there's a sub WhatsApp group where you all just go off and do your own thing. And that's not because you're deliberately keeping me away. It's just that cultural and structural gatekeeping that happens. And it's not something a lot of people are aware of. It's a flip as well. If you were the white person with the black people, we would probably do the same. I go, they won't understand, don't worry. Let's just go and do our own thing. And it's not that we're deliberately trying to stop you from being a part of it. So that's what I mean about the cultural and structural gatekeeping. And we need to now be deliberate about dismantling that so that we can be truly inclusive and supportive of outsiders and newcomers.
Yeah, it's really challenging any of those beliefs or assumptions or ideas that we may have internally, isn't it? You know, and as you say, creating a more inclusive culture and business community where all the information flows freely.
Yes.
And is open to everyone. So if I had a magic wand and I waved it, what would the kind of business landscape look like for women in enterprise? What difference would you like to see out there?
So for me, I would love, particularly for all women, to have an inner confidence. And this is magic wand stuff. You asked for magic wand.
Yeah.
But to have a true inner confidence, linking back a bit to what you were saying before about knowing that it's not, it's personal and business is two different things. So to take some of the emotion, or it's me, I'm the one that's wrong, or, I'm the one that doesn't understand or doesn't get what everyone else gets. So if I could make every female entrepreneur, every person, frankly, but, certainly every female have an inner confidence. And I don't mean in a powerful way that is dominating over anyone else. I don't mean in that false way of being able to walk into a room and talk to everyone in the room. It's that inner confidence of knowing I'm doing a good job here. I've got something really valuable to offer, and I'm doing a favour to everyone here by sharing it with them. I would love it if all women knew their worth and were able to truly feel it inside, because I think the ripple effect of that would be huge.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that, because confidence has a lot to do with believing in yourself and just putting yourself out there. Because if you don't have that, or if life's knocked you back a few paces, you go back. So if I had a magic wand, what I would love to see is a shift from performative support to actually practical, equitable access. One that supports especially women like me, women from underrepresented and migrant backgrounds, where we no longer have to prove our value. We're constantly stuck in that cycle of proving our value, being invited to speak, but not being invited to earn. That's a big difference. And if I had a magic wand, I'll take that away from it just being performative to actually being practical. What does support look like for you? What does equitable access mean for you? That's what I will be doing. I will be creating access to value for us. And just like you said, it ties in there with confidence. You might have confidence, but if that access to support is just performative, at some point you just get burnt out. Everyone wants to see me. They want to invite me. I'm the token person who's at the table, but I'm not actually allowed to speak so people can hear. I'm only invited to speak so people can see, oh yes, that's up. So I would take that away and make it much more inclusive.
Thank you. I think that's a lovely note, isn't it, to end on, that we just love for the whole business, well, for our community as a whole to be more inclusive.
Yes.
And for all of that access to be open to everyone. Thank you both ladies for joining me today. When I started in business, and I was juggling my 3 kids as well, and it was described to me as juggling sand. And I love that expression because it felt an awful lot like that to me.
I'd like you to explain that, please.
We're juggling sand because
I want to see that. I'm just picturing sand, but I want to understand that from your perspective.
Oh, from my perspective, it was like an impossible task.
You can't
You
juggle
just
sand.
couldn't juggle it. And so there was a bit of acceptance there that, okay, we're kind of doing the impossible here.
Yes.
But we're kind of capable of that, but it is going to feel like juggling sand.
Beautiful.
And so really, in sharing our stories today, I hope that if you're listening to this today, that you have felt a little bit less alone and a little bit less like you're the only one doing it, because I think so many women have got stories that are so similar to what we've heard. And sharing those stories, good and bad, I think are really important, because it adds that reality and that humanness to our journey, and it enables the unseen to then be seen, so that we're not so isolated in our entrepreneurial journey. And so if you're listening today, we'd love to hear from you. Share your experiences, your insights. Maybe you've heard something today that's been really helpful, and also your questions. And, we may even ask you to come on the podcast sometime too. And this week's challenge, as last week I set you all a challenge, so I'm going to set you one this week too. If you know someone who does have a lot on their plate, and you look at them and you think, gosh, yeah, they are juggling sand, maybe offer them a helping hand, or give them some, if you know of some support or something that you've heard that might help them on their way. Don't be afraid of holding back, or even just make them a cup of tea, but to help us grow this very supportive community where every business flourishes. I think sometimes it's very easy to look at somebody who's struggling and just kind of just walk away, or they're getting on with it, or it won't help them. And I've had it happen to me in the past, when somebody has turned around to me and said, well, how can I help? What are you struggling with? Because actually it could be access to support that they need, and you might be able to signpost them to something that's really helpful for them.
And if I can add to that, Andrea, as well as asking how can I help you, if you know the answer to that, just do it.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because we don't like asking for help or accepting help, or we struggle to accept help. If someone just, I think of when I have a new baby, and someone says, what can I do to help? Or tell me how I can help out. How many times do people take you up on that? If someone just does it, that's wonderful. I think we're too worried about stepping on each other's toes. True. And, I don't want to offend or do the wrong thing. Or who doesn't actually love it when someone just comes and makes them a dinner or makes them a cup of tea, like you just said.
I'll just ask, what are you dealing with right now?
Yes.
Because sometimes asking me, if I'm feeling overwhelmed and you're asking me, what can I help you with? I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know what I need. I don't even know what I want. There's other things going on in my life, and I don't know what you can do.
I've got time to think about it.
And then you can go, oh, Valentine, I'm really sorry, I can't solve this big thing for you. But you know what? I know this person, and I'm going to do an introduction. And I wouldn't just give you their contact so you can go off and do it. I'll do an introduction so you can then start a conversation. That's something good. Or you just, like you said, make the tea or bake a cake and bring it, and just that little smile of, did you do that for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that your friend set up your first business. You said, so registered it.
Yes.
Fantastic. And look where that's led to.
Yeah, I mean, it was just that extra thing. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody says to you, how are you? How can I help? Not being afraid to actually taking them up on it. So how often have we said, oh, no, I'm fine. Don't worry. Yeah. And we're not, so being that really open listening ear to somebody can make the difference. That makes a difference and gets a company registered. Yeah. So that's great. So thank you, ladies, for joining me today. And thank you all for listening. And join us next time as we keep exploring the barriers women face and the ways in which we can overcome them together. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, Andrea.